Pretty cute.
Yeah.
They don't line up like that. They line up like horizontally on the line. Oh, nobody gets to be first. No.
Well, drivers are so distracted by their cell phones that.
And on county roads, you know, you kind of maybe aren't expecting a kid to dart out in the street the way that you might in a residential area. In town.
Yeah, call the meeting to order. And first of all, I wanted to note for the record that Jason is absent and excused. And our first item is the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, the Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Next up is the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve agenda as written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You. Public comments. Anyone signed up? Tammy?
Yeah.
So if no one signed up, we'll go on to district information. Go to the order.
Well, we successfully got the first day of school off and running yesterday. And so with enrollment today, our full-time equivalent is 1,478 students. That's one student less than we have budgeted. So that's good so far. It is only day 2, so too early to get too excited about anything. Back in July, though, I did report that we had 63 new kindergarten students enrolled, and we're up to 77 now. Kindergarten starts on Tuesday of next week, and so we've got 20 more to go, though, to get to our budgeted number. But kids start coming in, and we'll see where we're at. But it's something that we pay attention to on a daily basis, especially for these first few weeks, see where enrollment comes in. And then last week, we were talking about it just a little bit, but we had 2 really successful cleanup days at both Acme and Harmony. So if you get a chance to see those schools, I'll get some pictures posted as well, but I think their PTAs put stuff out on our Facebook pages as well. And then we had our first ever resource fair last Friday that was very well attended. We had food trucks out in the parking lot and lots of families coming around. So learned a lot about what worked and what didn't, so that next year we can make it even better. Oh.
Great. So next is board discussion. Guess I wasn't thinking that was going to come before the consent agenda. So we just approved the agenda, so I guess we will do the board discussion before.
Okay.
The consent agenda. So the discussion, as I think said, I think I'd sent that, or we'd sent that out, was the, oh yeah, actually, Jessica, you had sent that on the superintendent evaluation models. And I think if we, let's see here. That's the site visits. The models you have on your email. And the 4 the 4 main, you know, we're not limited, of course, to the 4 main ones, but I think the ones that you provided, Jessica, cover the range of models. So I think they're really a basis for conversation on what it is we're looking for. So the four are the WASDA model, the WASA model, the Woodland School District model, and the Rochester model. And I think rather than going through each one individually, maybe we could start out by your impressions of all four. If we could go around and just one by one, your impressions of all four, or what you kind of land on or lean to. So,
Skip me.
okay, we're gonna start with Ed.
I did not review these.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, if you stand up.
Let me tell you what we're gonna do, guys.
Policy Apple
I'm just
Next.
kidding.
Did you notice on the WASA website, though, they have updated the strategic planning model?
I did, I
Okay,
saw
good.
that, that was gonna be, that's what I was gonna say, so when I first looked at it, they have the standards-based, which I didn't like that one at all, and that was one that we had looked at before. It's super wordy, and it has that rubric that's just like all of this content, and it's too
You're
much.
talking about the WASDA model?
No, I'm talking, well,
WASDA.
there's two, so WASDA has the three, that's on the WASDA website. So there's the strategic, goal-centered, a standards-based, and then the outcomes-based.
Right.
So originally, when I first looked at it 2 weeks ago, they had the outcomes-based ones, but now it looks like they're gonna redo that one, and they didn't have the strategic goal-centered one, so now they've got the strategic goal-centered one, and I think it looks great.
Do you want me to put that up there?
Yeah, do you mind?
Sorry, which one was that?
That is, go to the WASDA
The top one?
website, yeah.
You just said
Yeah,
strategic
and
goals.
look at that first one. This is the one that they just redid, and it's got, the three things that, well, it did mention our board self-assessment, which I can't remember when we did the last one of those. So it did mention that
I'm gonna say it was probably 3 years ago.
I'm gonna say you might be right. I know we've done one since I've been on the board. And then there's also an evaluation calendar, and that is on page 21. There's a lot of like pre-information on here that's really helpful, what you should look at, how you should get the information, and it's all like how you communicate with the superintendent and ourselves to do this. The suggested calendar is clear, descriptive, and, you know, makes a lot of sense. Like, that's kind of what we were
Mhm.
hoping to
Yeah, I
do,
like
having
that part.
deadlines and all of that. And then on page 24 is the evaluation template, which, so it kind of looks like that. Still, I don't know that it's like rubric based though, but and then if you go down a little bit more, there is an example, which is sideways and really, I know. Yeah. So it would be kind of like that. I would be really interested in looking more at this one. I did think the Rochester School District one that was on there was simple, but it was numbers based. And remember when we did a numbers based one before, we really didn't like that format. That was super helpful. So I don't know. I'm putting my chips into this basket.
Okay.
I don't know.
When I saw this, and I haven't looked at it super deeply, it was just earlier today.
Yeah.
But I like this. I think it will fit where we're headed with our strategic planning processes, updating that. It has enough resources in
Can you
it that
expand that a little bit so that it's a little more legible?
would help.
Yeah, that, and that's that you can download that and type directly on there. You can also remove grids from it as well. But I like that it is talks more about strategic plan goals rather than outcomes. Especially in the beginning of where we're starting, we're doing the strategic plan this year, and we're starting with a new superintendent, and I think we're kind of, I think regrouping and this seems a
So
little.
How do we
straightforward.
address though that we're working on our strategic?
Well, I think that, maybe that's one of the goals, is that we create the strategic.
Right.
We're creating
Yeah,
the strategic.
and I think one thing we talked in our last meeting was sort of the individualized goals are based on the entry plan
Mhm.
as opposed to for this
Right.
first set of time.
Which might be a good way to practice using this if we did it with the entry plan, like if you develop goals based on the entry plan.
Right.
And then just see how that feels going
Mhm.
through this, and then by this time next year, Barry, we would have a ready to go strategic plan.
Yeah, and then start facing that.
But this, one thing that's nice compared to some of the earlier was the evaluation models was, this doesn't have a lot of verbiage that really doesn't quite apply, that you just have
Right.
to wade through.
Yeah,
You can direct this to your core elements of the work be focused on during X period of time.
Yep. Yeah.
Danielle?
I like the alignment to the mission of the school, right? Because the strategic plan is fulfilling that mission. I wonder if we're only assessing for strategic plan goals in superintendent performance, if some of the other work that happens would get lost. Like that we might take this and make a hybrid, like maybe we need some additional categories.
Would that fall maybe under district annual goals?
Maybe.
What would be an example of something that you wouldn't want to get missed?
I think for an example, if you could bring up the Rochester model, because that's sort of the other end. It's kind of like the pilot's checklist. You know, you check off these 25 things before you start the plane. And I also think kind of meshing the two, because that one makes sure, you know, the nuts are taken care of and the bolts. But what's the beauty of this iteration of the WASA model, which the WASA model has focused on 3 mutually agreed areas of focus also. So I think, you know, that's a very much similar there. But you've got the important core of the evaluation are those mutually agreed areas of focus. But then this this could be done any time period, you know, any evaluation, like an annual evaluation, mid-year, whatever. And it covers a pretty good range of the totality of the superintendent's duties, in sort of a checklist fashion, but it's pretty quick to run through, and it reminds all of us that yes, you do have your 3 areas of strategic focus, but it's a job that includes
Leadership.
50 or 100 other major items too. So
Okay, I guess my initial reaction is this seems a little bit more abstract to me, right? Like you're gonna have to think through examples of each one, and then you're back to a discussion level. My first impression with the WASDA one was just, I guess what I'm hoping is, even though it doesn't get down to the details, when we're talking about the high level stuff, that gives us an opportunity to then have the discussion, to talk about challenges or problems or whatever that we're having. So we're gonna hit the strategic plan, but then still delve into those details.
Yeah, and I think on the WASA one, you can change it to say each section, whatever is applicable to us. So, but like I said,
and I think using this as reference to kind of get some ideas of things that we would want to put in there. But I still don't like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. That,
No,
Right, I don't think you would have to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could do, yes, no, you could just do.
yeah,
Two
consider,
things, I mean, I think the value of this is not in the A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. It's it's having that list to remind us of all those areas
Yeah,
and maybe a springboard discussion. So if there's strong or weak points here, you can either pin, you can log
Yeah.
those strong points, you can bring up.
the other way I would look at it is, I think the WASDA one is more forward looking and this is more looking in the past, like, we're gonna
Thank
say,
you, Ed.
oh, there was
I
there was a problem. But we're a little late if we're talking about that problem at that point.
yeah. But documentation of
Yes,
areas for improvement are important
yeah,
for all of us.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
Well,
wondering, I'm wondering if the difference isn't, I mean, this is more like daily performance or daily, and the other one is more about goal setting
right.
and how
Right,
forward planning. In teacher evaluations in TPEP, they have 8 different criteria that they are graded on, so to speak. And it's the responsibility of both the principal evaluator to observe certain pieces, but teachers also come to those meetings with evidence of what they accomplished that the principal can't possibly monitor. And I would expect to do the same where I'm, not that you guys would have to go looking for all the evidence because it's my responsibility to bring it to you.
Yeah.
And just, if you guys could set the expectation of where you want me to be generating that evidence, that's where my work would come in.
can we scroll
you know,
a little bit
and
back up?
one idea of how to use this is each board member goes through there and rather than even grading each thing or is goes through and finds those areas that have been really exemplary and finds those areas where you think we need a discussion about improvement. And so those are just, out of 100 different things, you may find just 3 or 4 things that you want to talk about that are on this, but it's like, as far as forward and back, the Roman god Janus had 2 faces, looking backwards and looking forwards. And I think an evaluation is like that, where you have to look at the past and see how did we do? What were the initial goals? How did we do in this case on the
Yeah,
totality of the work?
I'd be okay.
So that then we can really spend that time saying, okay, so these are the goals, these areas of focus going forward. But each evaluation period, you have to be able to look both directions.
There's also a strong difference between these 2 evaluation approaches. One is if you're measuring achievement of the strategic plan, that's outcomes focused. What did you get done? This is the how. How did you do it? What kind of leadership style did you bring? Did you top down tell everyone what to do? Because you could get really great results maybe with that, but maybe your employees are stressed out and burned out by that style. And if you only assess the what did you get done for strategic plan, then there's no room left to look at the how did you approach it.
Mhm.
And I think this covers more of that leadership style approach, relationships with people, and leadership is a core part of the job, not just right? It's not just to keep the budget balanced. It's not just to make sure that there's academic progress, but also to do it in a way that people want to follow.
I think Probably described why I really like the other plan,
Okay.
because
so
I'm very
yeah,
much
okay.
in
Results
favor of
oriented.
results and not worrying about the how so much,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, but I think.
But
that's
with
the big
with a
difference.
complex organization, the how really makes a difference because it is, you know, it's a people business. And it's- I also, on the Woodland model, what I wrote down in my notes, and it's been a little while since I looked at each of these. I felt they had a good section on the purpose and the goals of the evaluation, including identifying who does what and a clear explanation of the process. It wasn't so clear to me how the actual evaluation would look. But I think their purpose and their explanation had some value for us
That's the Woodland one you said?
that's the Woodland model. You know, and with the Rochester model, I'm surprised that a little school district would come up with something that we would, you know, is
They may not
impressed
have,
with.
they may have borrowed it from someone else and just not.
And now we just call it the Rochester
Yeah.
model, yeah.
Mhm.
But we don't have a Seattle or Bellevue model up there.
Okay, so.
Process. Brenna's like wall of words.
No, yes, but, so I hear that it sounds to me that everybody kind of is thinking of a blending of all of these. So where do you propose that we start the blending process?
I mean, I think it's easy enough to take the WASDA strategic goals based one and maybe add.
Sure.
Okay, so do you guys want to take the Rochester one, highlight what you think is the most important, send those to me, and then I can
Well,
put it into
You know,
the.
I'm gonna suggest that we have
WASDA.
that we appoint 2 board members to meet with Jessica.
Yeah.
And do an initial run through on kind of listening to what tonight's discussion was. And then come up with sort of, so this is what we hear, and these are how the elements fit together based on what we hear. And then bring that back again, and then look at that and use that as our starting point for further discussion, so that, you know, we are not having to craft the whole thing, but we'll have something to go on, say, is this kind of in the ballpark of what we
Yeah.
meant?
So
I think it'd be most efficient.
use the format from the WASDA one, incorporate the entry plan items and then some of the other items in there, and that'll basically be criteria.
And we
Which
could
would be a
even,
combination of the,
we could even
results
go
and
that
how.
far of you could incorporate your entry plan into that, into the, you know, kind of the narrative part of the WASDA model.
Well, and in the entry plan, and I'll be sharing an update on it in just a few minutes, but there are 3 kind of main sections of it, and those could be some of the rows within the WASDA model.
And I like having the strategic plan goals. But for this year, we won't have those fully fleshed out. So some content from the entry plan, and then we'll put a draft together. Make a version for this year with the understanding that then next year's would be centered on the strategic plan goals plus.
right.
There's one other thing from my notes on the Rochester model. I wrote down, I would add bargaining outcomes to the list in relation to finances and academic achievement. So it's, you know, I think they had somehow left that off.
I think, yeah, bargaining should be part of.
What's that?
I think bargaining can should be considered to be part of an
Yeah,
evaluation.
the evaluation part, right. That was the thing I saw missing, maybe the WASDA and WASA models are fill in the blanks. They don't really tell you what to look for. The Rochester does, but that was the only major area that I saw that I thought we would want that they had left off.
That sounds good.
So if we did that, two of us working with Jessica, who wants to volunteer?
I'll do it.
You too?
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
And we've got both sides of.
Yeah. That'll be good.
Conversation.
Right. So anything else on that?
No, thank you.
Jessica, do you have any comments about any of the models?
No, I mean, I see value in all of them and I like, I'm a list person, so I love things that you can check off.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I like the idea of being able to build something that fits our specific needs. So I'm right there with you in terms of blending it is probably the right approach.
Very good. So next up is the consent agenda. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Informational items.
Okay.
Hmm?
So
Just a minute here.
Start with an update on the entry plan. And so you'll notice up in the title of this, I've as I make major revisions, I'll change the revised date so you can kind of keep up with where I'm looking at things. For the public or people watching this later, this is a document that I actually first drafted when I was interviewing for this position, and it has had many revisions since. But it's pretty typical for any superintendent in the state or country, really, when they come into a district, they do have some type of entry plan. And it guides the work, and I've appreciated how the board, as I've talked with each of you over the past couple months, you've really pushed me to be able to answer, and I think, Ed, you were the first person to ask me this question: how has your knowledge of getting to know the district changed your plan? The plan shouldn't stay static. And that, I think what the noise is. Is that the train? Okay. So the mission that is there, that's the one that, the mission statement that's part of the current strategic plan. And so the introduction there is just what the plan is about. And then the overview, so pre-entry, I knew that the work was going to start before my official start date. So March through June, getting to know the district. And then listening and learning, July through August, and we're here toward the end of August now. And then the leading forward, which is September through December. And Russ and I had a good conversation last week or so around how I have learned some things that I know I'm going to need to make some changes to that leading forward part based off of needs that I've discovered. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. So the way this is structured is that each page has those phases broken down into activities that I did between board
You got
relationship.
them all crossed out?
They're getting there. Staff and community engagement, and then strategic planning. And so these were many of the things that happened while I was still in Othello, commuting or having lots of Zooms and phone calls with folks. And then the only thing that between this and the next page that I am definitely behind on is creating more of a deliverable around community meetings or interacting with people. I've certainly been meeting with people and getting out there, just not as much as I had hoped, again, because of some of the other work that I've also found myself engaged in. The links there are to some of those early updates. And there's been more since then, as you know, at the end of each week, but I haven't linked those. So then looking into the last couple of months, This is the work that I've engaged
Sorry,
with all.
but before
Yep,
you go
yep.
on, probably worth just commenting on the school improvement plan deliverable.
Yes. My report that's coming up in just a little bit, I'm gonna show you exactly what that looks like. So I'll do that tonight.
Okay.
So, over the last month, one thing that I wanna work on, I have a deliverable around my communication plan, which is already in draft format, but I'm gonna be adding to that. And that's where I'm gonna detail some of the conversations that I have had with folks. So while I have not met with any of the Whatcom County commissioners yet, I did meet with the Whatcom County Sheriff. I'm have meetings set up with 2 of our state legislators this week, and then I believe one may be coming to visit the district in a couple of weeks as well. So those are in the works, and I'll update you on those as they happen. I have not done any ride-alongs yet with a deputy or on any of our bus routes, but that'll be coming this fall as well. Definitely met with all of our department heads, talking about where we're at with work within the district. And I didn't check off community events in Acme, Kendall, and Harmony, because I realized kind of in hindsight, that was kind of a pretty broad way to describe that. I have been in each of those communities and done things, but I know I want to do more.
Back up on the first thing, the actions, we have a council, a form of government, instead of 3 commissioners, there's 7, so a lot more people to get to know.
Right.
Right.
And I'll probably focus on who our local person is, but I think some elections here that are
Right,
coming up
yeah.
here this fall will,
Determine that.
yep.
Yeah, so that will change with the November election, because I think the incumbent didn't get
Correct.
into the final 2.
I wasn't really sure. So for right now, this is just the way I'm going about delivering my deliverables, but I'm creating links within this document of things that do get done. So at the end of July, Gatana and I presented the annual budget. So that link is there. You have the board calendar in front of you. So that was a draft. It's now finalized. Another piece of that, though, and that's the second page that you have in front of you tonight, is a draft of the school board site visit structure. And so that'll be something that I'd like you all to take a look at and give me some feedback on before I take that to the principals and see if that fits their needs as well. The communication plan, I expect by the next school board meeting, I will have the communication plan link there for you, and that'll be part of my presentation in a couple weeks. For scheduling time with buildings,
Can you just give us an idea what the communication plan is?
Mhm. It is, okay, so it's a combination of like social media planning. So you've seen some of that already in the last week with an increase in Facebook posts. And so that's my plan is very intentional, so that every week now we'll have at least 2 to 3 posts about things that are either happening in the district or, in October, it'll be Principal Appreciation Week. In January, School Board Appreciation Week. So it's appreciation weeks plus events that are happening in the district, days that are off, plus just things that are happening in the district. So I have that scheduled out through the entire school year, so that kind of as superintendent / communications director, that starts running itself, and I just have it on my calendar. Oh, I've got to get that post out. And so that helps me organize. And last night, actually, I was using ChatGPT to fill that in even more detail, so that what else am I not thinking about? So it's helping me populate that. So that's been helpful. The other piece will be the trail talks and other community events where I need to start doing the planning of how do I organize those, how do I advertise those, and then put those into place. So it is definitely a combination of the online outreach plus the in-person outreach. Tomorrow, I'll be sending out the first in-district staff newsletter of the year, and I'll share that with all of you when that goes out as well. That's correct.
Remind us what the trail talks all about.
Trail talks are where I'm not actually hiking.
I misunderstood that.
But it's just my cute way of saying getting out on the trail where people are, whether it's in the Kendall, Acme or Harmony areas or here in Dunning and meeting with folks.
On the other aspect of that, which you've done, but didn't write in there, was tagging on already pre-existing community events, which is the easiest way to find a bunch of people.
Yes.
And whether it's, parents back to school, any of those types of activities, if we can have a system of making sure that those opportunities get funneled.
Yes.
To you.
And I fully expect that communication plan to evolve as I get to know the district more in terms of how do people want to be communicated with, what works, what doesn't. I know that the Foothills little monthly newspaper is going to have a feature on me, I think, in the next edition, so we'll see how that turns out. But just that kind of outreach and making sure that
And athletic, music, drama events, those are all great places to be visible and people come up and buttonhole you.
Yep.
No, seriously, I think that really counts a lot, because
I know you do. I believe you.
okay. Because that's, for most people, that's the only time they see the superintendent.
It's also, communication is also a great way for the community to see what we're giving them for their tax dollars, right? A glimpse into, look at this vibrant educational community and all the neat stuff that's happening.
Yeah, all too often, I think for all school districts, the community doesn't know what the insides of our classrooms look like enough. Like we need to allow people a peek into the day-to-day world of our students and teachers. And so and that was kind of what I had in mind as I was taking those pictures for the first day of school. It's what's actually happening in our classrooms.
And it feels really good to get to see that, even as a board member that gets to go and tour classes periodically, right? To just have that, here's a snapshot in time across our whole district. It was really, it's really wonderful to get a feel for the community. Yes. Yeah.
So much more to come on that. I'll have that organized and laid out for you to look at. For the last column there, each building principal knows that I've committed to being in each building at least once a week for 60 minutes. And so I yesterday got into each building about that amount of time. It took the whole day, but so I'll schedule that out and I'll plan that out and the principals will know when I'm coming. And the purpose of that is, one, to just sit down and talk with them about what their needs are, what are they experiencing. But then I want to get into classrooms with them. So we're going to go and watch instruction together and talk about what we see and what kind of feedback they're getting to the teachers. So that'll start getting regular.
Is this a change from past superintendents?
I think so. I think, yeah, I don't know how much that was happening. They seemed surprised that was my goal. So
Okay, that needs to change.
Yeah.
it's hard because it is so
Sure.
easy to get just tied down to the desk here. There's a lot of work to do, but that's where I start losing my joy for the work too. Like you've got to get out and see the kids. There was a high school student who I took a picture of yesterday. They were doing a lab where they were extracting DNA from a strawberry. And it's a lab that I've taught before, and it's just, I absolutely love it. And the fact that the teacher was doing that on the first day of school, like right out of the bat, and every student in that classroom was engaged. I mean, that was the best part of my day yesterday.
That's cool.
So.
It's good research on the teacher's part to have looked at your teaching history and
Well.
for your
Yeah,
business.
she nailed it. And during the reports today, I will be giving you the school improvement plan preview. So that is a concrete outcome there. And then tomorrow in my staff newsletter, we'll have the Mount Baker School District Employee Handbook and the Mount Baker Technology Handbook ready for release. So we'll see how that goes.
I didn't know we didn't have one. That's crazy.
So what are some of the key elements of the technology handbook? We talked about the the employee handbook, but I
Yeah,
haven't.
I'll show you. So I worked with both Cody and Doug, our two technology specialists, to develop this. And really what this is meant to be is a resource for staff to use when they have questions about technology that's not working right, technology that they might need. And it might seem silly, but just the system of how to ask for help with technology is a very complicated thing. You know, do you call, do you text, do you email, do you put in a ticket? So just, you know, helping people see what the process is. For number one, we only have 2 people for this entire district that are helping run our technology. They are very busy and it has to be organized, otherwise it doesn't work. So I've been very, very thankful for their hard work. When I first arrived, I wasn't really sure how to set up my phone or voicemail or, you know, password. So it's as we do have new staff or as staff forgets, because you don't change your voicemail very often. There's a resource here and you can find that. The other thing that is maybe new is just a reminder around email and calendar etiquette, that every email that we create as a district is a public record, and to ensure that we're being professional at all times. Safety and security. This is a piece that is not quite finished, but I still wanted to get this out because we have a little bit more work to do, and want to improve the communication we're giving to students about taking care of their Chromebooks and fines that can happen with that and such. Reminding folks of our staff's network use agreement. Everybody signs this when they get hired, but it's a good idea to remember what you signed years ago. We're working on communication about describing our network safety so people understand that. This is a snippet from the policy that was passed just 2 weeks ago, talking about technology. Then we've got a page on technology troubleshooting tips. Or when things aren't working, you know, there's a joke, well, restart your computer, see if it works. But these are just standard things that we see. And then also frequently asked questions as well. And we do get a lot of questions from folks who very, they want to work well on the behalf of our students, and they want to use their own devices, or they want to put different things on the network. And we sometimes have to say no to that so that we keep our network secure. We certainly don't have the staff or the money to handle things if we had a malware attack or ransomware attack on the district. And so we're both legally required to keep the district network secure, but also it's just a practical money side of things too. So it's simple, just 4 pages, but we're hoping it'll be a resource that.
Yeah, a lot
helps
packed
people.
in there.
Mhm. So to kind of move on a little bit in my superintendent items, 2 of the areas that I know I need to build into the coming leading forward phase, it's not here yet, but it will be in a future update, is some more specifics on our facilities and capital projects. And that's why I shared with the board the request for qualifications that went out, that was advertised in the Bellingham Herald, and it's on our school website right now. Because we do need a little bit of help with that, as we're seeing that we've got a couple of projects that are significantly behind, both the Kendall Fire Suppression project and the Acme Portable. There are some key things that weren't in place to get those projects moving. And I want to make sure that we don't miss those deadlines in the future. I want to make sure we're not losing money because we're not being as efficient as possible in running these projects. And so we're looking for just a little bit of outside help to help Shannon Richardson and I organize the work and be able to present to all of you a really coherent plan of, this is the money we have, these are the projects that we have, and get the guidance from the board around how to prioritize and how to get the projects
I
done.
wanted to say that I strongly support the move you're taking that way. I think it's a recognition of what we have and don't have in-house. It's a recognition of how, you know, the complexities of moving capital projects through, and how every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted. So having a person who's, or entity that's easily, that's part of our regular process will make our capital projects program so much more feasible. And so I think it's a very good move.
It's paid for at a capital project.
It would be, yes.
Yeah.
So it will cost a little, but in the end, it'll save us more money.
It's necessary, because I think if you try, the complexities of contracting is such that it is so easy to put out a contract that doesn't meet every element of state law or policy. It's just super easy to do it. And I've worked with so many different agencies across the Northwest, and I recognize agencies that have every one of the 100 elements done correctly, and ones that just put out stuff that's total garbage. And I think having that expert help will really keep us in that correct category.
So they'd be paid fixed amount, not a percentage of it.
Correct. It would be an hourly rate for the actual time they spend with us.
And being that this is paid out of capital projects, this is not money that can be spent like the general fund on teacher salary or anything like that.
Correct.
So this is not competing with. These dollars are already earmarked for capital projects, can only be spent on that. I think I'm saying that more for folks who might be watching now or in the future, to just be really clear that that money is not taking away opportunity for us to pay for a teacher something. Right.
And there are many grant opportunities available for capital projects that we're going to need some help making sure we can maximize those dollars as well. So whoever we do select is, I'm hoping has experience helping schools specifically with grants.
And also for granting organizations, if an entity that has a good track record at carrying things out is more likely to rise up to the top of their list of who they want to give the grants to in the first place.
And I have a rubric that we'll use to evaluate all of the submissions that we get, so it'll be a fair, transparent process that way.
Would their hours vary per week depending on the workload associated with the number of capital projects, or would it be more of a constant?
I think it's going to vary. I would anticipate at the start, maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And then after that, just maybe a few hours a week as Shannon and I have questions. But I'll keep you guys updated with that.
Okay.
The other addition that I'll know I need here is a lot more work looking at staffing. Getting a better picture of where we're currently at with the number of staff we have and the funding that we have for them, how they're being scheduled at each building, and making sure that I have a good understanding of that so that I can support principals in the staffing requests that they have, and then also make sure that as we go into bargaining with both PSC and MBEA this spring, that I really do understand where we're at with who we have in the district and how much.
So are you
they
saying
cost.
you'd hire a consultant to help with that work, or?
Not necessarily. I'm looking for some tools that will help us. Gitana and I were just talking about a couple different options. I'm reaching out to different superintendents around the state to find out what tools they're using. And by tools, I literally mean spreadsheets, where, if the spreadsheets are built in a way that helps us organize and look for trends and look for spots where maybe we're overstaffed in one place but understaffed in another. And
Would part of that be what do they call it, the model, right? There's like an ideal model based on, what was it called again?
the
Yeah.
prototypical staffing model.
Prototypical staffing.
Yeah.
That part of that.
It definitely is part of that, but even if we were exactly where we needed to be between what the state says we should have and what we do have, the state's still not paying us the money that is. So it's the prototypical staffing model. It's also how much money we're actually getting.
Right. I just feel like that's something we need to keep on our radar, because like it or not, it's where that's what our funding is based on.
Yes. But yeah, so that'll be a big part of my work over the next couple of months, is just getting up to speed with that.
Yeah, I think by reaching out to other districts, you get a more realistic picture of it than, you know, the prototypical school model. It needs to be adapted to reality, and it's always a political fight, because each adaptation costs a lot of money statewide. So if we can probably get a better picture from comparable districts.
Okay. So the other two things I just wanted to ask the board, this was an idea that came about more just some conversations this last week as we're talking about revenue, and we're talking about how can we generate more revenue. And I'm curious, just on face value, and if I kind of get the go ahead from the board, I'll get some more information on this, but what is the board's feeling about if we were to start using our sporting facilities to have some advertising where different community businesses, different community groups could pay to, I'm sure you've seen that in other sporting facilities, you know, really nice signs up on fences and around where they're paying the district for putting that up there. And that could be money that we would then be able to generate for either our athletic programs, or we were even talking today about if we're gonna get a turf field out there, you know, would an advertising revenue option be something the board would be interested in at least discussing? Or is that just a no-go, like you don't want to do advertising in that sense?
We've done it in the past.
I always wondered why we didn't do it.
There was an article in WASDA last year that talked about, Tammy is nodding, it talked about some of the challenges of bringing advertising in and First Amendment rights. And that it can be challenging to filter out content in those ads that may not be something that the school wants projected out into the community.
There is WASDA model policy on that we don't have this policy. So if we were going to pursue this, we'd have to talk about that. In this model policy, it says that as a general rule, we don't use school property for commercial advertising. It can be allowed though if it supports district programs like an event sponsorship or athletic programs or school newspapers, that sort of thing. It has to be approved by the superintendent or designee, and it can't promote products that conflict with educational goals. So tobacco, alcohol, political endorsements. And I think that would be where we would have to be very careful with the language about how we make those decisions. But
Wouldn't you be able to say, yeah, but those would have to be approved, so like, we don't have to take certain things, yeah, well. I know, I'm always like, I don't know if I wanna put North Fork on here, guys, cause it's a brewery, but they always ask, so. Give them money, but-
Yeah.
I would wanna have a discussion, absolutely review some of that policy from WASDA, because I remember reading the article, and I don't have all the details top of mind, but there was definitely a gray area that's worth making sure that our policy and then any procedure that gets developed be careful. Yeah.
I'm all for anything that can generate more money.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I am too, but I'm saying let's just
Sure, yeah.
caution flag.
well, Principal Matt Durand was telling me today that the reader board out here is not working the way it should. And the repairs on it would be about $4,000. So we don't have the district money for that. It sounded like FFA might be interested, the booster club there might be interested in that, but I said, you know, hang on, like I want those kids to be able to use that money for other things as well. So if we can find a sponsor to get us a bigger, better reader board out there, I'd like to explore that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's worth worth looking at, and as you mentioned, examining what might be potential pitfalls, and then weighing that based on the information we get back. And I don't think I feel strongly one way or the other, but you know, I'm always interested in more revenue.
Well, we have prime real estate out here in Mount Baker Highway.
Yeah.
So,
We do.
I think we might be able to capitalize on that a little bit. Okay, well, I'll get some more information and then at a future board meeting, I'll bring that back to you. Okay. That's my longest superintendent item yet. but-
So that's, let me see here. Next is reports on teaching and learning school improvement plan, I think is the next we have up.
Okay. Let me get back here. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this slideshow and I'll, there is definitely more information about the school improvement plans that I can share links with all of you after the fact, but I'm gonna just start with this preview, this overview, and then based on your questions, I'll know whether or not to share the other links with you as well. So this is a slide that I've used in multiple meetings to talk about why we do the work we do with school improvement plans. I don't think it matters what district you're in, what state you're in, what part of the country you live in. School is a really complex place where you have a lot of competing interests and competing initiatives that it's really easy to keep adding on, and then all of a sudden we're going in 10 different directions and wondering why we're not making the progress that we want. So the challenge is to start creating more coherence so that we start moving all of those arrows in the same direction. And that doesn't mean that every school is exactly the same, but we're moving towards some of the same goals. And so this is something I shared with the principals a couple weeks ago. I also shared this with our teacher leaders at their school improvement planning meeting. Now, school improvement plans are something that we have done as a state for I don't know how many years. They are legally required, and for the Every Student Succeeds Act, that's also part of some accountability requirements for us to get federal funding. So schools are really good at jumping through the hoops of doing these things. The trick is making them actually meaningful and actionable. Even with the kind of the high level, what the state asks, all plans are supposed to be rooted in data and equity. So you start with student achievement, demographic data, and really look at who's achieving and who's not. And then you build goals based on that, and the goals should be specific, measurable, and time-bound. In education, they're called SMARTY goals, which ironically are sometimes smart and sometimes not, because if you write goals and then don't actually make a plan to put them into action, it could be the best goal in the world and it's not going to get us anywhere. And then lastly, these plans should be reviewed and updated regularly. They are living documents. And again, even pulling them out once or twice a year, I don't think is enough. And so what I'm attempting to do here is create a system so that when the school improvement teams are working on in just their weekly, monthly meetings, that these plans are driving the work.
So who would be on a school improvement team?
It's generally, I think it's about 4 or 5 teachers per building. I'm not entirely sure. It's typically at least one teacher per grade level, sometimes the counselor, different support staff. Each building that kind of gets collected a little bit differently. The high school certainly has a much larger team than Acme, but it's supposed to be a cross representation of the building.
Okay, so they're almost like our strategic plan. They're going to be meeting, go through that and build a plan. How long was that?
For their school improvement plans. I can't speak to what their past practice has been. When I started in July, each building had a plan. I don't know how much time they spent on it. Because it was in theory, like the plan was already done. I'm treading lightly in terms of how much I'm asking them to change right now, because that is a big change for them to have to come into the school year and be like, oh, we have to do things differently. So it's also part of our contracted language that these teacher teams need to have input on these plans. So a principal can't just unilaterally make changes to the plan. It has to be done with teacher input and collaboration. This was another slide that I shared with the principals and with those teacher leaders about just why I'm asking them to revisit the plans. So this is everything from helping us move to more action, validating that I'm not saying that the past plans were wrong. I'm just wanting them to be a little bit more. I want them to start thinking about goals in both math, ELA, and social, emotional, behavioral, attendance kind of areas. In a little bit, you're going to see that not every building has goals in all three, and that's fine because that was kind of where they ended last year, but I am asking them to start thinking about all three. These plans are living documents, and that's why I'm not showing you the actual plans today because they're messy right now. We're right in the middle of getting them put together in a coherent way. I also don't want to take any of the principal's thunder because they're going to be coming more to you this year and they're going to be explaining more. And so I want them to present it in their flair, with their teacher teams. The two main things that I've asked them to pay attention to is to use data more intentionally, like where the students are currently at and where we want them to be. And to also start identifying what's going to change in the classroom. Not just what we're going to tell parents to do more and not just what we're going to tell the kids to do more, but what are the teachers going to do differently to help students learn more. And so we're addressing that through identifying 1 or 2 instructional strategies that an entire building might commit to. And so they're starting to identify those, and you'll see that in just a moment. Now, this is the format, and I don't love this because this was just my kind of rough draft thinking on my laptop on my couch over the summer. But what I wanted to do is to create kind of an idea of a one-pager, so to speak, where at a glance, you would be able to see what the goals are, what the current data is, and then what is the instructional focus and the assessment plan. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see some headers. And for instruction, it's small there, but it says, what is our tier 1 plan for how we will teach it? And tier 1 means how are we going to teach all kids, regardless of what level they're at? Because you're never going to improve a school by just focusing on remediation. You have to focus on what kids are learning the first time and making sure that that is strong. And so having conversations with teams about how are we going to identify that, then how are we going to measure it? And then we do also need that intervention and acceleration plan as well, but that comes after building a strong core instructional plan. So that's the first piece. The second piece then is, okay, so let's do something with it. And so the teacher teams with their principals are going to start looking at, for each trimester, what are we going to focus on? Because we can't do it all at once. So let's bite off pieces where we can feel successful. And it's not just, what I noticed in the previous plans is that the person who was most responsible for actions tended to be the principal. Well, the principal can certainly encourage action, but unless there's clearly identified actions that the classroom teachers are going to do, that the leadership team will do, that the principal will do, and brand new to this plan is what is the district office going to do? All of us working together, and then how will we measure that impact? We're going to build these as 9-week cycles for each trimester. So at the end of each trimester, we'll look at, okay, how did we do? And then build the next one and keep on going. So there will be a lot more documentation. Again, though, it's messy. It's not, if I can share with you a folder that has all of these for each building, but they're all in different places. What I can share with you today, though, are some highlights from each of them. So I'll start with the junior high. One of the things that they're doing, and they're combining right now ELA and math. So this is an example of not having 2 separate goals yet. But what Troy Wright, the principal there, did over the summer is he did a deep dive into the data that came out of the ESPA for both math and ELA. And he realized, oh, we've got to do a lot of work on vocabulary. Our students need some work with that. And so he's looking at explicit vocabulary instruction. And then he's also asked his teachers to start looking at their scope and sequence documents in more detail. And so that speaks a little bit to the idea of the syllabus questions that the board has had in the past. But it's hard to build a quality syllabus if you don't know exactly what your whole year looks like. And so the scope and sequence helps them do that. The other thing they're looking at is their discipline and attendance. And so they are continuing to build their PBIS system. When I was in the gym on the first day of school yesterday, Principal Wright was already giving Baker Bucks to kids who were participating and being positive. And so, and I've seen some of the slide decks that they have where they're going to intentionally teach students what the expectations are and how that works. So he's got a lot of that structure in place. So just a recap, you've got explicit vocabulary instruction that'll be coming. CASEL is a source for other strategies, and so they're looking at those as a resource. They're updating their scope and sequence documents, and then developing some team teaching approaches with their learning support teachers and their gen ed teachers.
So if, just as an example, for explicit vocab instruction, would that be taking place in lots of different types of classes, like even like a math class or
Yes.
something like that?
And that's the trick at secondary, because, you know, to tell the junior high or the high school, you need to pick one strategy that works for every content area. That's where secondary teachers go. That's not for us, that's elementary. But if you were to pick vocabulary and you think about math instruction with vocabulary, you need to be able to deconstruct a word problem in math and understand what it's asking you to do.
Right.
So there's strategies specific for that, just like there might be strategies for being able to understand the main idea of the story. And so that's the work right now of the team, is to figure out what do we want to focus on to say that all teachers in this building are going to do this strategy.
Okay.
At the high school, they're focusing more on ELA. And it's important to note with high school that not all students take state tests every year at the high school level. They take it at 10th grade, and then in math and ELA, and then in 11th grade, they take the science test. So again, it's hard when not everybody is being tested in the same way to be able to bring that coherence together. But they're going to start with ELA, and their next step is going to be, again, to identify one strategy to focus on the different strands within the ESPA testing model. Because it's high school, they're also thinking a lot about their graduation rate. And so this is where, even though graduation happens in 12th grade, they're focusing on their 9th grade success program to make sure that students are on track and not failing classes in 9th grade, because that predicts the likelihood of them graduating by the time they're in 12th grade. And then they're also looking at developing a stronger plan for cell phone expectations. Principal Durant has been really getting a lot of staff feedback on how they feel about cell phone policies, because the best cell phone policy we could, hand them at this level isn't going to work unless the teachers are on board and can put it into place. So he's really working on
I
that.
thought you were gonna say the best cell phone policy is this.
Well, they're both good and bad.
So on the graduation rate, would that also include a examination of what are the barriers to graduation, the kind of broken out reasons for not?
Yeah, and they, and I'm still, Matt is still teaching me a lot of the things that they've already put into place. But the fact that they've been working on this 9th grade success and the program, and they have a grant for that, they've identified that how we're bringing students into high school and how we're supporting them and how we're making sure that they are taking school seriously, we have to start in 9th grade. But as they start developing their action plan around, okay, well, 92% by 2029, that's not just all on the kids, that's also on us as educators. What are we changing? What are we doing to support that? So part of that is looking at data. How many kids are failing classes? Talking to the students about why they're failing. Is it attendance? Is it that they're not understanding things? Is it that they're not getting the help that they need in class? Or are they just not paying attention? Or are they on their cell phone? I mean, it could be any number of things. So they're looking at that. And then the high school is also looking at its scope and sequence work. And I like the statement, and I just copy pasted this from their plan. We should have simple, clear alignment between grade levels and courses that any teacher can use to provide the same content experience for our students. So when you think about those arrows, again, they're starting to develop systems to create those arrows headed in the right direction, same direction. Okay, elementary. So at Acme, with the new principal, Kimberly Elms, they are looking at their daily ELA instruction, English language arts, and embedding high yield strategies. So those are some examples: academic talk, different representation formats, scaffolds. EL is English learner, and SWD is students with disabilities. They're also ensuring that there's a 60-minute math block with explicit instruction and structured math talk. One of the best things that we can do for students in math is get them talking about math. You can't just sit there and do the numbers. Well, some people can, I couldn't. I need to be able to talk about it to be able to understand my misconceptions and be able to hear how other people think about math. And then discipline and attendance, they have weekly social emotional learning. And then she's also building some new school-wide expectations around being accountable, being caring, mindful, and engaged. And Kim is a very structured, she's a very creative person. So she's actually put together these high-level instructional strategy for engagement, little posters that she's creating. And again, I'm not going to take away from the presentation she's going to give you, but this is an example of where they're headed. At Harmony, they are looking at some specific increases in data for literacy and ELA. So they're looking at iReady is the new data system that we have for reading assessments. So they're looking at taking the spring 2025 scores and increasing them by 5%. And then they've also have some goals around discipline and attendance. So this is an example where they don't have a math goal this year, and that's fine, but they're definitely focusing on their literacy and their attendance. And then when I was talking with Todd Matthews about the work that his team did just very recently, they're talking a lot about student engagement and selection of Hattie's strategies. John Hattie, he's a researcher where he has identified strategies that are more likely to help students advance versus strategies that aren't. And so they're going to go through and make their selections. And I like these 3 questions that he said they're going to focus on. What are students doing? What is the teacher doing? And how is the environment supporting student engagement? For example, do teachers have charts up on the wall to help students remember things that are important? And so when I go into classrooms with him, now I know what are the 3 things we're going to be talking about when we leave each classroom. And then finally at Kendall, with literacy, they are also looking at improving oral reading fluency. So that's how quickly a student is able to read a text out loud. And then, so that's at K3. With the older students, they're going to look at their actual reading comprehension. What do they understand about what they've read? In math, they're looking specifically at numbers and operations and algebraic thinking. So this is an example of Sandy Ledbetter taking her team and saying, instead of just saying we're going to do better in math, we're going to do better in numbers and operations. Like we're going to drill down and get really specific. Now you notice that blank there, and that's fine because this is still a work in progress and her team is still working to identify what percentage they're working toward. And then discipline and attendance. They have a lot of systems in place that I've seen in action first day of school, working to decrease the number of referrals up there. Some of the tools that they're using, I don't know if you're familiar with Class Dojo. It's an online little app where teachers are using that with kids. On Monday, I also helped Sandy do a presentation on CHAMPS, and this is a system where each one, CHAMP, I can't remember offhand what every letter stands for, but it's a way for teachers to plan for structure and plan for clear expectations in the classroom. So when I was walking around yesterday, I heard a 2nd grade teacher with the students in the lunchroom saying, when we're in the lunchroom, we talk at a level 2, like our voices, we can't be really loud in the lunchroom. So it's teaching students how loud to be, how expressive to be, when to be working in a group, when to be working alone. Because students, if we let them guess, they maybe will guess right, they'll maybe guess wrong. And so as a school, they're bringing that together. And then for their specific ways that they're going to teach, this is a list that Sandy and her leadership team have identified, and they're going to continue to refine that and decide what it is they're going to focus on throughout the year. So it's gotten a lot more specific than what it's been. And it's gonna get even more, so I'm really looking forward to seeing next steps. So the school improvement teams will continue to work with their, the teacher leaders and the principals together. Then on those Wednesday collaboration days, that's not time typically that the principals can tell the teachers what to do, but even within the MBEA contract, it says that the teacher teams get to determine what they're gonna do within their school improvement plans. So that's why it's important to have a strong school improvement plan to guide that work. Principal PLCs, so once a month I get together with the principal teams, and so I'll be continuing to work with them along with both Bridget and Ian to support their leadership. And then you guys get to see the regular check-ins throughout the year. So when you look at that school board site visit draft, this is the kind of work that you're going to see updates on, both when you go out to the buildings and when the principals come here to give you updates.
Well, I'm really excited about this. It feels very strategic. It feels like there's I like the idea of focusing on a few things and having a time frame, which creates a sense of urgency. So all that feels like this is gonna be successful.
I hope so. And we're gonna have, pitfalls and times where it
Sure.
doesn't go the way we wanted it to, but at least we'll know what we tried and what didn't work.
Yeah.
So we can choose differently next time.
Yes, and that it's measurable, right? It's not just a goal that we're hoping we meet. We can actually say, yes, we got there. No, we didn't. And if it's no, then what next? Right? Yeah.
Feels like the right mix of the high level and then digging down into the details.
Sorry, it's my automatic door checking.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
meeting going on, so I'll do it later.
You just gonna open the door?
I can see who left.
Oh, okay.
Sweet. Okay, well, that's all I got.
How are the staff? I don't know, but is there excitement around the shift that's happening here with the school improvement plans?
I don't know enough about that yet. So it was, I think a week ago today was when we met, and we were in the high school library. We had Casey Knudsen from the ESD who did a presentation for us. And I presented some of the slides you saw tonight, just saying, okay, we need to refine our plans and get a little bit deeper. And then they had work time. And so the highlights that I presented to you was what I saw from the documents from their work time. So I know that they're working on it. I'm checking in with the principals. I haven't heard anybody say anything negative yet, but I think they're still like, it's new. So they're like, well, we're trying to figure out where we're headed, but.
Well, and I think it'll take time for people to sort of see the reward that comes from joining in and doing that.
Yeah,
kind of
and
work.
that's a key thing for me. I want them to have some wins so that
Yes,
it keeps the momentum going.
yes.
I don't mind saying, this is kind of what I was hoping for when we hired a new superintendent.
Good.
Yeah. That's good.
You mean for the school improvement plan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of
me
those.
too. I compared to, we weren't gonna get into comparing and contrasting, but there it is. So too.
Yeah, but this is the kind of organization and drive and focus, and I'm always thinking about data over here. I know, I thought of you, and I'm seeing a lot of progress in a very short period of time for Son of Gonzalez.
Well, and some of that though is evidence of a lot of that already being there in place.
Yes.
So it's not like none of this was happening before. It's just bringing it to the top so that we can talk about it.
Yes, and helping us see it and understand it. Yeah.
I think all the other deliverables you're working on, the employee handbook, those are all things that are gonna, you're gonna get them done and then help you focus on the teaching and learning and improving the educational side.
Yes.
I would like to acknowledge that the deliverables that you have completed so far is a tremendous amount of work
I
in a
agree.
short period of time. And as a board member, I'm really excited to see that action in progress. And the communication plan and the employee handbook and the technology handbook, I appreciate that those are all foundational things that are you helping to set an expectation to the staff around who you are as a leader. And I think that's a great way to it's sort of like the syllabus in a classroom, right? It's helping to establish, here are some of the baseline expectations, so that we're all on the same page and people know what to expect so that they can be successful.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the people who have helped me accomplish a lot of these deliverables. So it hasn't just been me alone. Just getting the information, giving me feedback, helping me refine it. So it's been a good team here at the district.
Wonderful. Glad to hear that it's
Yeah,
collaborative.
it's so important for it to be both comprehensive, but also be resonating with people. It's having that review and feedback. And,
Yep, and that'll be ongoing.
right.
Yep.
Definitely. So next up is finance, facilities, and operation budget report.
Which one has budget business first? Monthly business report?
Yes. While we're waiting for that to be up in front of everybody here, you'll notice I'm kind of keeping the same format as before. This is what Gaetana and I would like to use as we talk about these monthly updates. So I'm sure you know that not a whole lot changes month to month. So it's not a big formal presentation, but it's just like a kind of an engine light check on where we're at with our numbers. So because this is, we're reporting on the month of July, because we're always kind of a month behind. Enrollment did not change because the school was not in session. But I'll have Gaetana share just kind of some top level thoughts about the numbers that you see there for the general fund.
Sure. Come up here. Okay, so I won't speak to enrollment, obviously. Jessica spoke to that already. General fund, we are almost through with our year as far as the fiscal year goes. So you can see that we're at about 92% of the fiscal year. Our general fund revenues are at about 30 million and represents about 87.7% of our estimated budget. General fund expenditures are 30.6 and represents about 93%. The balance there is about 741, and again, that's July. These numbers have changed in the last month, so like I'm going back in time. Yeah, cash and investments are at about 1 million, which represents our current available cash and no adjusted expenses or revenues.
Gaetana and Alina, the woman who's been helping us, have developed a cash flow model, which I'm hoping we can show you eventually once that's finalized. It's going to be a very good predictive tool so that we can look at the next 12 months and really know within reason where we should be at, which will help us make real-time decisions. Because if we spend money now, we can see exactly what it's going to do 6 months from now.
On that same note, Alina has taken a job. I'm not sure if you heard. She has taken a job in Sumner Bonnie Lake. So her last day with us was yesterday. She will still help me remotely as much as she can, but super grateful that I've had her to help. So,
Yeah.
And we have some other sources of help so that as we need it, especially for the year-end process.
Yeah.
We're we're not on our own yet.
No, lots of peers always,
Yes.
they will always be there, so.
Yep.
Other funds and cash investments, no significant changes in any of the fund balances. And we do have our binding conditions meeting tomorrow. So I look forward to that. I sat in on the last one, so I'm not sure really what to expect, but we are currently meeting binding conditions and
Great.
How long does you expect that to take?
The
I
last
can't
one-
imagine.
The last one was like 15 minutes,
Yeah.
15, 20
Okay.
minutes.
Maybe a
Yeah.
half
Because
hour.
I'm meeting with the Commissioner of Public Lands at noon.
Okay, yeah, we'll absolutely be done by then. Now I say that, we probably won't, but. Yeah, and I'll hold off on doing my board update tomorrow until after that meeting, so if there's anything to report or share from that, I can let all of you know. And then the graphs, this was a technical glitch on my part. I need to rebuild some of the spreadsheets that created these graphs. So you'll notice that July is not there, but once we get to the next monthly budget report, we'll have that up to date. But
Not a lot of change.
yeah, there's
anyway,
not a lot of
so-
change anyway, so
Yeah,
we'll,
the numbers are up above, it's just the graphs.
any other questions on the monthly update?
That's good. Okay. Next is a public hearing on the budget extension. So I'll open the public hearing. And if anyone wishes to comment on the budget extension, now's your time. Hearing no one, I'm close the public hearing. And we'll go on to Mount Baker resolutions, and the first resolution is resolution 24-25-26, adoption of the 24-25 budget extension.
So this information just mirrors what Gaetana shared with you 2 weeks ago. On the extensions, it just formalizes it so that we can make the necessary changes. And
Any questions on that one?
Nope.
It's technical in nature, but necessary to be able to cover the new level of budget of revenue and expenditure. So I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 24-25-26.
Motion to approve resolution 24-25-26.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And then next is a big resolution 24-25-27, which is transfer from capital projects fund to the general fund.
And so Gaetana, correct me if I'm wrong on this at any point, but this was about $500,000 that Brian had identified that we can, like, he talked to the board about it previously, that to transfer from capital projects to the general fund for purchases that we've made that in the general fund that really could also qualify as capital projects. So earlier in the year, the bulk of that had already been transferred, and there's about $85,000 left that we could do for that, and so that's what we're doing.
This isn't of the nature of a budget extension, but it's an additional transfer, but we don't have to name it as transfer number 2.
No, because it's the bulk amount had already been in the budget. We just didn't do it all at once.
Any questions on this one?
No.
No. If not, I entertain a motion to approve resolution 24-25-27.
Motion to approve resolution 24-25-27.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And let's see, next up is the non-PSE salary schedule.
So this is the salary schedule for the team who work primarily here in the district office. There are a few others that are also in this group. So these are employees who are not under PSE or MBEA. And so there's not a contract that, like the other groups have. In the past few years, there had been a document that looked more like a contract, when this was presented to the board. And I'm wanting to just walk it back a little bit, so it's, not in that language format. But this is the, salary schedule, for this year, and then you'll also see the, leaves and benefits. And anything that's not addressed on this page would be, found in district policy in terms of how we might handle different, employment.
Has everyone had a chance to review this?
Yeah, I did have a question. Is everyone at full time
Yes,
now,
yes.
including the hourly? That was a change from before, right? People were at like 0.9 or.
Yep, that was one of the budgeting cutbacks. So
Right.
some people had furlough days, others were not working full FTEs, but
Okay.
everybody's back.
Okay. I think that's good.
Any other questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve the, in fact, oh yeah, okay, this is a board action to approve it, isn't it? It's not written. Is that correct, or is this just an information?
This is an action item to approve the
Okay.
salary schedule.
Entertain a motion to approve the 25-26 non-PSC salary schedule.
Motion to approve 25-26 non-PSC salary schedule.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
And now we're up to upcoming events, regular meeting September 11th, September 25th, and our first special meeting, elementary site visit, September 26th, and then October 24th, secretary site visit. I don't know where it fits in here. I probably should have asked this earlier. What is the plan for the Wastots Highway 9 closure?
You know, I was trying to look that up just the other day because I was a little worried about what that was gonna be and I couldn't find anything.
Because it's like a 68-mile detour.
Yeah.
So getting kids from Glen Haven.
Yeah.
And anywhere south of I think it's between Mailing Road and Rothenville Road. It's just north of us. So it's the culvert there.
I will see if Suzanne Wooden has any information on that.
Yeah,
but
it'd be nice, email it to the whole board. I was particularly interested in where our plan is, but if you could email that to the whole board.
So they're closing Highway 9?
Closing Highway 9 entirely for approximately a week.
Wow.
Just north of us. So we can go to Cedar Lily fine, or out Lake Watcom Way. Yeah. But we shouldn't have any board meetings during that time period. I'd probably attend by Zoom unless, I'm driving 68 miles, but.
That's a long way.
How many students do we think that would impact? That might be something to.
It's
look
gonna
into.
impact secondary more than.
Yeah, well,
anybody else,
and-
so.
it'll impact the Acme kids from Glen Haven
Yes,
and Wickersham.
it might be nice to pull a list of who those students are. You're already making plans to attend by Zoom. Maybe.
No, I'm not gonna have to because I'm saying we're not having a meeting. but I'm
I'm
just-
teasing,
Yeah,
but these are,
No,
many of
we'll
these,
we'll get them to school, but.
Yeah.
I need to check with Suzanne to see.
Yeah.
what the route would,
Yeah.
that's a long detour.
and also communication to the families.
Yeah.
So that's, I should have asked you earlier, but it's something that's gonna have to happen tomorrow.
That's,
I've looked up on WASDOT site to see, and they don't say anything.
I know, that
And it's
was,
like,
Normally I get a notification when the closures, but I haven't gotten anything for this yet. Did you hear when the dates were?
what's that?
The date?
Well, the reader board sign there, I think says it starts, I believe it starts next week sometime.
I'll-
So
I'll-
I
I'll-
presume it doesn't start Monday if that's Labor Day, but
I'll do some digging and I'll let the board know.
A long detour.
Notifications.
I mean, that. how long
at
is
first
that,
they
an
said it's
hour?
just gonna be closed to trucks, and then they said it'd be closed to everybody.
Oh, yeah, I haven't-
So, yeah, I mean, if it's a full closure, I guess my letter to the DOT is gonna be, you couldn't have done that a week before school starts?
Yeah, that's precisely what I thought.
Right.
Yeah, but the salmon take precedent, even though the creek is dry both weeks. And this culvert accesses about 40 feet of very poor quality spawning. And I'm sure they've already spent more than $1 million on it.
They probably got a grant earmarked for.
It
It's-
says single lane traffic,
I was gonna say,
alternating
that's all I've
traffic
heard.
between Potter and Red Sat.
What does it say?
Single.
That's
Single
all
lane
I read.
access.
Oh, so now
It's
it's in
May
single
lane.
lane.
I know, I was just worried about me.
'Cause The real board says full closure.
But that's Potter and Red Sox. That's.
Oh, Potter and Rusted, that's.
Yeah, that's a
different.
different one.
Internet's out. So you
That-
can't
that's a
run
different
quick
one.
at work.
Yeah, this is Mailing
Xfinity's out
and
to
Mailing
like
Rock-
2:30.
it's a Rockenmuller Road on the other side of.
South of Acme.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea.
It's right next to the Shetler's place, just north of Shetler.
Should I type that in?
They won't know that.
Well, if there's anything I've learned, Mount Baker is resilient and we will figure this out.
Well, you know, we got to put up some tables there.
No, I've just noticed all the signs that they have prepped with black plastic. I'm like, oh, something big's coming.
Yeah. You kind of wonder, like, is there a way to have a bus, pick kids up, bring them right to the construction site and negotiate a little like run through where the kids run and then another bus picks them up. and takes
Well, I
them
think
to
the
school.
track will, the bucket will pick them up. and
Yeah.
swing them.
But, you know,
Instead of
like.
a fish ladder, it'll be a
Would
student
that be
ladder. Okay,
You just flip the bucket around, pick it, and use it as a scoop.
Look at Russ and I were
Be
getting this
memorable.
off track.
so we might be having some special meetings, so I'll tie this back. We might have some special meetings about how we're getting kids to school.
Well, yeah,
Is this no longer draft?
Correct, I need to take that off. I took the watermark off, but I forgot that.
And
So-
then how did you want feedback on,
Either by email or give me a call, either way.
what's on this video?
on the school visits and
Okay.
sort of the general?
So, next up, we have the board will recess for executive session for 30 minutes to discuss performance of a public employee. No action will be taken following the executive session.
It'll probably only take about 20 minutes, I think.
20 minutes, okay. And so I think we can, Tammy, do you have documents ready to sign now before that? Take a few minutes to sign documents first.